Today we are moving from ratios to proportions. A proportion is an equation stating that two ratios or rates are equivalent. So notice two ratios. So we're going to be using ratios within our proportions. We also have steps for setting up proportions. These are kind of guidelines for you to use throughout your notes in your work. First step, set up the first ratio using given information. So the first ratio you write down will always be given to you within the problem. Set up the second ratio using a variable for what you have to find. Remember, a variable, it represents the unknown. So when we have to find something, we're going to put a variable there. Remember, a variable is a letter. Label each part of the proportion to make sure you have set it up correctly. So whenever it's a word problem and we know what it's talking about, we will be labeling every bit of the proportion. We will not take shortcuts on that. Part 1 says the following ratios are equivalent or proportional. Whenever ratios are equivalent, they're proportional. Find the missing values. So the ratios of ticks to fleas on Laura's dog Ripley is 20-6. How many fleas would you expect to find on her cat Lily if she has 40 ticks? So the first step in solving a proportion, we are going to have you guys set up a ratio just using words. Two things that are comparing to each other. So that is, we are comparing ticks to fleas. After you set up what we're going to call a word proportion, then you're going to set up the actual proportion. Remember that and here are our steps. Step 1 is to set up first ratio given the information. So the first ratio was that Ripley's dog has 20 ticks to 60 fleas. How many fleas would you expect to find on her cat Lily if she has 40 ticks? Well, here is the top part of our second ratio because in our word ratio it says that ticks are on top. So 40 ticks, and it's asking how many fleas would you expect to find. So I don't know fleas, so I'm going to put X for fleas and label it fleas. I don't know what that is yet. Okay, then within our proportion, we solve. So, how do I get from one to the other? So, how do I get from 20 ticks to 40 ticks? I'm moving this way with it. Well, to get from 20 ticks to 40 ticks, I multiply times 2. What I do to ticks, I have to do to fleas. So, then it's 60 times 2 equals X. 60 times 2 is 120, and that equals X. So I have 120 fleas is what I would expect to find if she had 40 ticks. Number 2. There were 5 pairs of Smelly Jim socks and 8 pairs of Smelly Jim shoes. How many smelly socks would you expect to find for 24 pairs of Jim's shoes? Okay, so our ratio using our label, we're talking about socks to shoes. First step is to set up a ratio using given information. So this right here is our given information. We have 5 socks to 8 shoes. We're going to see if that's equal. A proportion is one ratio equal to another ratio. Remember, they are proportional, which is called equivalent. Okay, so that means that here I have in my other information 24 shoes. Look at your word ratio. Shoes goes on the bottom, so I have 24 shoes. And I don't know how many pairs of socks, so it's X socks. Then I see how I get from one to the other. How does this flow? Well, I can say that 8 times 3 gives me 24 shoes. So what I do on the top, I have to do on the bottom. So then 5 times 3 is going to give me my socks. 15 socks is what equals X. I would like you to read this and try to set this up on your own and solve. Once you have done that, press play to check your work. Okay, so I have tears to onions is my word ratio. Remember, when the video writes you right, check all your work and make sure everything is present. So then I have 32 tears over 2 onions. That's what was given to me in my problem. Then X represents the unknown. I want to know how many tears, so X tears over if she cut 6 onions. So 6 onions. 2 times 3 equals 6, flowing this way. So then when I do the bottom, I have to do the top. So 32 times 3 equals 96 tears. Here we don't have words, but we still are solving for the unknown. This is a P over 4 equals 11 over 6. And then this is saying P equals, and then our box. Okay, so this is just trying to solve. This is giving you the proportion setup. How do I solve? So now if you notice, the P is on this side. The missing is on this side. So I have to go from this way to that way. So here are I want to look, where do I have numbers on both sides? That's the bottom. So how do I get from 6 to 4? What times 6 gives me 4? Well, I'm unsure of that, so I want to come over to the side, and I want to divide. You divide what you're getting to, so this is inside, over what you are using to get there, which is on the outside. So I want to use 6 going into 4 to find out what times 6 equals 4. So 6 cannot go into 4, so this is where we add our decimal 0. I want you to divide this out and round to the nearest hundredth, and then press play when you have finished. So when we work problems like this, and when we divide and we get more than 2 numbers after the decimal, for now we're going to round to the nearest hundredth. So that means that 6 times 0.67 gives me 4. When I do the bottom, I have to do the top. So 11 times 0.67 gives me P. 11 times 0.67 gives me P. So I come over here and I multiply 11 times 0.67. I have 2 numbers to the right of the decimal. Please solve this, and when you found P, press play. 11 times 0.67, or 67 hundredths, is 7 and 37 hundredths. If that is not what you got, now would be a good time to press play and look at my work and find your mistake and see what's going on and what you need to do to fix it. If not, if we got it right, we'll continue on. Number 5, solve for X. So let's write this out. It says solve for X. Then it has an 8 over X is equal to 10 over 7. X equals, and then it has a box for your answer. So I'm solving. One way to help you with this, getting from one side to the other, so remember we're going to look and see where do I have numbers on both sides, and that's the top this time. So if I'm looking and I say, how do I get from 10 to 8? Well, 10 times nothing or 10 divided by nothing gives me 8. So I want to then look at this ratio, the one that's full, that has a number on the top and the bottom, and say, can I simplify it? Maybe that will help me figure this out. If it's no, then we're going to do exactly what we did on number 4. We're going to say 10 times what gives me 8. We're unsure of this, so we've got to divide. The number that you're getting to, I'm getting to 8, where the end of the arrow is, that goes on the inside. The number I'm using to get there goes on the outside. So 8 divided by 10. Add your decimal 0. The answer to this is what you multiply by 10 to get to 8. So you're going to do the same on the bottom. So when you divide this out and you get your answer, I would like you to solve for x. Okay, so when you divide it over here, you should have gotten 8/10. That means that 10 times 8/10 gives you 8. 10 times 8/10 gives me 8. What I do at the top, I have to do the bottom, so that means that 7 times 8/10 gives me x. X equals 5 6/10. Again, if you didn't get that, press pause and look at my work and see where your mistake was. And we'll talk about it tomorrow. I have 2 more problems. Number 6 is it says part 2. This should say part 3, it should say part 2. Knowing how to set up a proportion. 9 markers cost $11.50. Set up a proportion to determine how many markers, or 7 markers cost. So, markers to money. Remember, the first step is our ratio with words. Okay, so then next is the given information. I have 9 markers over $11.50. Proportion is 2 equivalent ratios, so equal always comes next. That's something that we forget to put is our equal sign. 7 markers. Markers goes on top, so 7 markers. And I want to know how much it costs, so I don't know that, so X represents my unknown. That's just the setup. The solving is getting from here to here, the one without the X to the one with the X. I would like you to try to solve this on your own. Press play when you have finished solving for X. Okay, so I needed to divide 7 by 9. The number I'm trying to get to, which is 7, or if this makes it easier, the number that is with the X goes on the inside. The number that's not with the X goes on the outside. You come over here and we divide it. Okay, then you had to round, which is what we did right here. That means that 0.78 times 9 gives me 7. And that means what I have to multiply 11 times 0.78, which is right here. That gives me X. So I came over here and I multiplied, and that gave me my final answer, which is $8.97. Again, if this is not what you got, please press pause and find your mistake, and we will talk about it tomorrow. I would like you to try number 7 on your own. It's okay if you don't get the answer. Trying is what we're looking for. Try to set it up. Write the word ratio and solve for X. We will go over this tomorrow. Questions you still have? Any questions you have over this video, or please create a problem for your table to solve.